Good morning and welcome to the second development log for Chronicle Destiny. This is a dialog mockup. It is not actually the implementation of the dialog feature, just how it will basically flow in gameplay. Being that one of the main objectives is for dialogue to be in real time. That is that the player can engage in dialogue with other NPCs without interrupting any other action, as opposed to uh, normal gameplay, going to dialogue gameplay, and then back to normal gameplay. So let's go ahead and really quick. Now the game is being designed with touchscreen in mind for mobile gaming. So that circle on the upper right is basically where the player will be interacting with their screens. But right now on keyboard, if I press the letter J, it's gonna show up a couple icons. Right now they don't do anything. It's just uh, going through the states just to see how it flows. If I release right now I'm still holding the letter J, and if I release it, basically it goes through the conversation, whatever that conversation is going to be. So again, this is just a mock-up. It really doesn't interact with anything, just to see how the flow will work. So here is basically another uh, a video of the mockup for the dialogue system. Again, it is being designed in touchscreen in mind. So right now the player is basically interacting with the touchscreen, selecting the response. Right, the NPC is asking questions, and the GUI is responding to what kind of answers it can give. And since it is real time, the player may be doing something else rather than listening. So it has the ability to repeat what was last said. Um, Different kinds of answers the player can give depending on the situation. And also, the player will be able to actually stop a conversation rather than uh, conversation basically going through everything. So let me just go ahead and um, explain basically the various aspects on this dialogue. So right now, again, it is being designed with touchscreen in mind. So the player is basically pressing on the upper right corner, and it shows these three icons. These three icons is basically three different types of conversations that the player can have with the NPC. Uh, the first one on the left, that is basically greeting, saying hi. That's basically the normal how I will normally start a conversation. The green one is command. Basically, you can issue commands to the NPC, and the blue question mark is basically question, is ask a question to the NPC. So in this occasion, the player selects greeting. So the player greets, and there's an NPC that answers the question, that answers the greeting. And the NPC just is asking for a question. May I ask you a question? This is a yes or no question, and the dialogue adapts to that. It shows uh, two options, yes or no, and the player selects yes. Next, the NPC is asking a question that requires a number. So it gives up this interface. in which the player can select can basically decide on a number. So you can make it larger, make it smaller, whatever the number needs to be. If the player still doesn't want to give an answer, they can lift the basically release the dialog key, and no answer will be given if nothing is selected. But then the player go ahead and selects number 4 and then releases the key, so it answers 4. Then the NPC asks for something else. However, the player doesn't respond. Maybe it is busy doing something else, so the player doesn't really is not engaged in the conversation. So the UI does reflect that it is a yes or no question, but what was the actual question, the player probably doesn't remember. So if the player lifts the dialog key really quickly and presses it again, it will show up this alternate options. One of them is say again. This the blue icon with the two arrows is say again, basically repeat what you said last time. So the NPC repeats the last question, may I ask you something else? Now the player can actually answer, know what they're answering. Now is asking for basically an opinion. What do you think? It can be a positive opinion, a negative opinion, or a neutral opinion. In this occasion, the NPC will select the neutral opinion. However, if the player hovers, keeps the option selected, it will show basically what the player will be saying. It will not actually say it, but it will show the player what the character will be saying if they select that option, while they're basically keep the option selected. That way it's not too much of a surprise what the positive, negative, or the opinion. And that's also true with all the other options, all the other answers. So it gives its answer being in the neutral, it's just okay. One last thing. Should I stay here or go home? This is a question that gives options. It's not a yes or no. It's not an opinion. It's not numbers. For this occasion, it will give basically a blue option or a red option, and the player can select one of those two. However, at the end, it decides to stop the conversation. It goes to the alternate menu by releasing the dialog key and pressing it back again quickly. It gives the alternate options, and one of them is basically to stop the conversation. So the player stops the conversation and the conversation ends. So basically that's the general idea of the flow for the conversation, for the dialogue system. And throughout the conversation, the player will still be able to do other actions, will be able to move, will be able to attack, will be able to whatever it is that the player needs to be doing alongside the conversation. Yeah, it wasn't too much that was done this week, but the dialogue is one of the main concepts for this game. So that's it for this week. Thank you for your time.